Welcome into another exciting edition of Locked On 76ers. He's Keith Pompey. I'm Marc Farzetta. VJ Edgecombe. Keith, what has happened? Was it just an amazing start to his career, or has he all of a sudden hit the earliest rookie wall in the history of the sport? We'll talk about that and more on this edition of Locked On 76ers.
You are Locked On 76ers, your daily Philadelphia 76ers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And we do thank you for making Locked On 76ers your first listen every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This particular episode is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel, check it out right now for new customers. You can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you get $300 in bonus bets to use across the FanDuel app. So head to FanDuel.com right now to get started. That's FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app. We've talked about VJ Edgecombe. We've both been very impressed with VJ Edgecombe, Keith, and what he's been able to do so far throughout his 8 games as a rookie, but things have really started to decline for VJ Edgecombe. People are talking about a rookie wall. 8 games into the season, Keith. We've discussed it. Is it strategic or is it fatigue right now with VJ Edgecombe? Why have we seen the drop-off through the 8 games we've seen him so far at the NBA level?
You know, I think it's a combination of a lot of things, but I also think it's something that people shouldn't worry about right now. And here's the thing. First of all, we look at it, VJ Edgecombe is playing the second most minutes per game in the NBA, second only to Tyrese Maxey. That's a lot for a guy who is playing his first 8 games of the season. They played 8 games in 15 days. So you have that aspect. Secondly, right now, the 76ers, a lot of times we look at VJ Edgecombe and we see him and we say, wow, we wish you could have got more scoring opportunities, but you had Joel Embiid out there and you had other people out there, and where it was where they didn't really go to VJ as much, right? I do think that when you go against a team like Cleveland, he went up against 2 elite guards. He went up. I honestly think about this. The Cleveland Cavaliers have 4 all-stars on their team, right? 4 of them. 3 definite. You could say Jared Allen's another one. So that might have been the best competition that he played against, right? So when you combine all that and you see how early it is, it's bound to happen because he's playing the minutes. He's not getting as many opportunities as he could have in certain situations. The way I look at it is, okay, he got 1 shot attempt in the game against Boston in the fourth quarter. He made it. It was a 3. Mm-hmm. Then there was another game against when they played against the Chicago Bulls. He was the only one who shot 50% in the fourth quarter, right? So he comes here, and yes, he goes 3 for 14, but at the same time, he was tired. So I just think that he'll be fine. Yes, there is a such thing as a rookie wall. I know it's only been 8 games, and you can say, but look at the minutes that he's played, talking about 38 minutes a game. It's all going to be fine, Mark. Like the back-to-backs and that too. But if I'm a fan, I'm not going to panic over that just yet. I'm not. Now, if the guy was out there shooting the air balls all the time, if he was getting stripped, if he was getting dunked on, if he was like, oh yeah, bro, we got a problem.
I'm 1,000% with you here. And I think one of the I hate to call it a problem, but you come out and you score 34 points in your rookie debut, that kind of sets a high bar. If that game would have been like his 3rd game at the NBA level, I think it would be a different story. But he came out of the gate. He set a very high bar. Him and Tyrese Maxey look like they've been playing together for years and all that. So I think his standard that he has set for a lot of Sixers fans right now is extremely high based on that first game. I think you were doing him a disservice if you were thinking after that first game he was going to be a 34-point-a-night type of scorer. I am not worried. I am not concerned. I know this has been a discussion by some people in our chat, so I thought it was worth dissecting a little bit further. You definitely have seen the numbers dwindle, especially look over the next last handful of games here, looking at 37 minutes, 38 minutes, 33 minutes in that game against the Brooklyn Nets. The Sixers really just blew out the Nets. But you also see the production going down from 17 points to 16 to 12 to 7. I'm not going to damn a guy after 8 games played. I'm going to have to use a phrase that I don't like seeing, but don't like using, but if you're going to use it at all, it better be about a rookie. And it's 8 games. We'll see how he digs them. You have a little bit of struggle. You play against talent on a, unfortunately, back-to-back like VJ Edgecombe did. This is a guy that averaged about 33 minutes per game at the college level, again, with no back-to-backs. Now a guy averaging 5 more minutes a game with back-to-backs, 38 minutes, and also playing at the NBA level, which is a little bit more difficult than playing at Baylor. I'm just going to go ahead and assume that, okay? As someone...
Just a tad bit. Just
a little bit, brother.
Yeah, he doesn't have Texas to crash. You know what I mean? Like, they played those Texas Longhorns. They used to beat the crap out of.
Yeah, they put him over his knee.
He used to kill Texas. He used to kill Texas.
And the other part of this as well is a quote that you highlighted in your article on Inquirer.com, which is basically Nick Nurse saying somebody's got to play. I can't have, Joel Embiid on minute restrictions, Jared McCain on minute restrictions, or, a guy that we're going to rev up slowly for the rest of the season. Somebody's got to play. So they're asking a lot of a rookie, albeit a rookie who's a 3rd overall pick. They're asking a lot of him. That's not just him going and playing, but also him learning to be one of the scoring leaders on this team, one of the best players to play on this team, especially on nights where you don't have Joel Embiid available. You're asking a lot of him to be part of this transition away from big man basketball, more so to a 4-guard team, 3-guard team really running the show.
True. That has a lot to do with it. I mean, he is fatigued. And I look at it, and so you are asking him to do a lot. Unfortunately, there's a learning curve in the NBA, and we all have to know that. Like, when you did say, and I was joking for everybody know, yes, I know that Texas is no longer in the same conference as Baylor and all this and that, but that's just having fun. But at the same time, when we talk about the level of competition, like the guards that he are defending now are a little bit more bigger, stronger, faster. They have patented moves. They can do stuff. And what being a learning curve is, right, at now, or most often than not, people are going to get the best of him, right? Until he learns that. Secondly, you are right. When VJ Edgecombe was drafted, even as the number 3 pick, he was looked upon as a guy that we thought would be a role player this year, a guy who would come in and develop. But due to injuries and due to his exceeding expectations, he was thrust into the starting lineup. He had a phenomenal game the first game. And then a couple game nights later, against the Orlando Magic, he had another great game, right? So we look at that and we say, okay, this guy has really arrived. But he's exhausted. He's doing things that he hasn't done before, playing as many minutes. I mean, we talk about this. He's averaging 38 games a minute. 38 minutes a game. I had that back maxed up. But when you look at it, at college, the games were only 40 minutes. So can you imagine if VJ Edgecombe didn't come off the floor at Baylor at all? It's crazy. So this is what the equivalent is of him doing all that, and then he's thrust into a thing where he has to be, the savior. I honestly feel like once Paul George comes back, and it's going to be easier for him because now he no longer has to go out there and guard the top perimeter player or the one of the top 2 perimeter players. He can slide down and get like an easier guard because everyone on here, they love basketball. They know basketball. Talking about the viewers too. Mm-hmm. You guys know that in the NBA, it's hard to bring it on both ends of the floor. And when you have to guard an elite guard, and then you got to come back and be able to lead the team in scoring or be the second leading scorer, that's a tough ask. It is. So, it is what it is. He'll get better. This is something that, once Paul George comes back, is going to take some pressure away from him, and he can go back to being a quote unquote, just standout rookie. And then, he doesn't have to be the savior, so to speak. And another thing is, y'all, and I know it, like playing with that Embiid effect is huge because right now we got a young guy who, when Embiid plays, it's kind of like we need you to be more aggressive in attack. Well, when Embiid doesn't play, we need you to be more aggressive in attack. But when Embiid plays, it's like, okay, now you got to determine when do you attack, when do you like just give Joel the ball, spot up, be a 3-point shooter. It's just a lot of things that's going through his young mind right now.
Yeah, I'm sure. And at times spinning, adjusting to the level that he's at now. Now, there is one thing I like from this, another new Sixer, certainly not one that was drafted, but one that was acquired, and that's Trendon Watford. I want to talk about him pushing the basketball a little bit more and maybe being more of a facilitator as the season goes on. We'll talk about that more when we return. This is Locked On 76ers and Locked On 76ers YouTube channel. Back after this. And right now, I'm going to tell you about DoorDash, the NBA season heating up. DoorDash has found the perfect way to keep fans in their bag all season long. Whether you're watching for highlights, your fantasy team, or your favorite player to go off, DoorDash has every game night that much better when DoorDash is involved. DoorDash is the official on-demand delivery platform of the NBA, and they're celebrating with something called the bag drop. Every time an NBA player scores 50 points in a game, DoorDash drops 50% off your order with Dash Pass the next day, and you're automatically entered for a chance to win the ultimate fan bag from DoorDash. Whether you're a player-inspired drip, for instance, you could also look at some exclusive gear and stuff that you'll actually want, not go, that's a nice trinket, and then throw it away. It's what DoorDash is giving you. I love how it's not just food. You can also talk about the snacks, the drinks, headphones, ice, even socks, for instance, all delivered with DoorDash. They have you covered for your late night highlights, last minute watch parties, and double overtime fuel ups. So next time someone goes off for 50 points in an NBA game and you use promo code NBA50 the next day, you get 50% off the DoorDash order with Dash Pass. Plus, you have a shot at the bag drop as well. Dash Pass members 50% up to $10 the day after a 50-point game with promo code. Terms apply. No purchase necessary. Ends April 13th. Open to U.S. residents 21 or older. Visit DoorDashInYourBag.com for full details. DoorDash in your bag all season long. When Trenton Watford, Keith, was originally acquired by the 76ers, one of the things that you had mentioned that you liked about him was his time with the Brooklyn Nets. He was a facilitator, a guy that could grab a rebound and go, essentially running a lot of point guard. But it was the Nets. So somebody had to do it kind of thing. And if somebody was going to do it, they weren't going to look too bad doing it. He obviously did that. In his brief time here in Philadelphia, seeing him play his first couple of games here with the Sixers, he has been able to do exactly that. You've seen him rev up and get better in the short amount of time that he's been here, get his legs back under him. But it does remind me, albeit doesn't have the speed, it does remind me a lot of Ben Simmons with the get the rebound and go. You have an instant push out there on the floor. I'm really liking what I'm seeing when Trendon Watford is involved in this offense, and especially when he is that facilitator in this offense. He has exceeded my expectations as far as the numbers he's been able to put up and as well as the style of play that he's bringing to the Sixers.
Yeah, he's a great player. Remember, and I said that a couple of weeks ago, and I felt kind of weird saying it. I was like, he reminds me a little bit of Ben, but a less athletic Ben Simmons. And
Yeah.
Basically, the comparisons to me is that he is around the same height, 6'9", Ben was 6'10", big frame, but he's a pass first type of guy. You know what I mean? But he's outside of that. If they did the decathlon or they did like the world's most athletic, Ben Simmons would destroy him, right? And everything, right? So let's get that out of the way. But at the same time, he is a quality basketball player. I think he adds a lot. My only concern or question to him is, it's like when we look at him, we say, okay, they could really use that in the starting lineup, somebody who can facilitate, get people the ball. But at the same time, it's kind of like, well, Paul George making $50 million, Joel Embiid doing they're going to start. But Kelly Oubre is one of those guys who basically has been one of their saviors on the defensive end. Like he and Quentin Grimes so far have been their two best defenders. So if you take Kelly Oubre out, then what do you have right then and there, right? So that's my concern. But I do really like what he brings to the team. I like what he brings to the team. It's just that my thing is that good enough to disrupt the starting lineup that you have?
Yeah, I would say no right now. But as far as him coming off the bench, I think that's been a great role for him on this team. I am curious also in terms of the facilitating part of it. If you're going to see more of that from Paul George whenever it is that he does come back with the Sixers, who do you think they would defer to more as a facilitator? Do you think it would be Trenton Watford, or do you think it would be Paul George?
It's weird because I do think that Paul George will have that type of role, but I don't think it will be on the level of Trendon Watford. You know what I mean? I think that's his game, right? I think
I agree.
PG can do that, but I think like PG, to be honest with you, he's more like a Swiss Army knife, right? Like he does a lot of different things, right? He can score at times. He didn't show us a lot last year just because of the injuries. But I think that when we look at him, ideally, you want him to push tempo. You want him to do some ball handling. You want him to be a guy who can late at games. What's happening? The closing has been the problem the last couple games. Like these two losses that they had, close losses, they were unable to close them out, right? And I feel like that's something that maybe you can look at Paul George. But again, is all going to be determined. I think he's going to help out on the defensive end, but his offense is going to be determined when we go out there and we'll see him. But he can set players up. He can get out there, drive, kick. Somebody is going to get it. He's smart enough that he knows IQ that he can give a nod to somebody, a head fake, and the guy will go down to cut to the basket, and he'll do a bounce pass for an easy layup. So I have confidence in PG doing all those type of things, but I do think that Trendon's role is more of a point forward role, whereas PG is a guy who can do a lot of different things.
One of the things I liked hearing from Trenton Watford, I think it was after the Cavs game, despite the fact that the Cavs game was not a great success by any means, he was asked about facilitating, and he told a story of his dad when his dad was his coach when he was younger. I won't say little because he's certainly not little. I don't think he was ever little. But when he was younger, his dad would never put him down just in the blocks. He would always have him, work on his ball skills as more of a facilitator, maybe back then more of a point guard, even though he was big. And then he also said that his dad would really try to influence other coaches when they were coaching Trendon Watford. He'd be like, hey, make sure you let him handle the ball too, because he's going to need that skill on the next level and the next level and the next level after that. And I think you really see that in his game now, and it is a sight for sore eyes, especially on a team. And I know we've talked a lot about no point guards really exist anymore, blah, blah. But when you talk about a team that could use somebody who is very comfortable in that role of facilitating, because I still think Tyrese Maxey's growing into that, even though the assists have been up. Quentin Grimes had his career high in assists the other night, but I think that's going to be few and far between for him. A double-digit assist type of night, even 8 assists per game type of nights. But having a guy that is as comfortable with taking the bull by the horns in that aspect of the game, I think will be very valuable to the Sixers as the season goes on, even when Paul George rejoins this team.
Yeah. And that's true. And, it's funny, though, because maybe his father was on to something because, you look at Trendon Watford, who was at LSU for 2 years, right? And I just want to bring this up. I looked at him. I was extremely impressed with him, right? I saw him and I was shocked that he was not drafted. And I even told him that. I was like, dude, I watched you play at LSU and you weren't drafted. But then you look at LSU and his last year, it was kind of like I saw him playing more down low a little, you know what I mean, than anything. Uh-huh. And so he wasn't a real good 3-point shooter. His last year, he shot 31%. For the 2 years, he shot 29. So he was giving you 17 points, 7.4 rebounds, but he had 2.9 assists in 34 minutes, right? So we're saying, okay, you're playing all but 6 minutes of the game and you're getting 2.9 assists. So he wasn't the player that he is now. The college coach wanted to fit him into a certain role. And you look at that and you say, man, maybe the Pop knew what he was talking about because for this guy, if you tell me he was undrafted and he came in the league as a two-way player, like, he's solid. Now, is he a great shooter? No, he's not. Was he a great foul shooter? No, he wasn't. But you knew he could get a bucket. You knew that he had a high basketball IQ, and it's all starting to pan out now.
Fair enough. I look forward to seeing more of it. When we come back, I want to focus a little bit more on Nick Nurse now. And after highlighting his comments following the loss to the Cavs about digging themselves out of last year, that got a lot of response. We'll talk about that, and also how people are viewing Nick Nurse right now and whether or not right now he is managing for his job or not. We'll talk about that when we return. This is Locked On 76ers and Locked On Sixers YouTube channel. Make sure you like and subscribe. And now let me tell you about FanDuel. Hopefully you guys are having a great time on FanDuel with all FanDuel has to offer, because it's always a good time with FanDuel. NBA season very much upon us. No better place to get in on all the action than with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Ever miss the start of a game? Don't worry about that with FanDuel, because you can get in on the live action as the game unfolds in front of your very eyes. FanDuel has live bets on everything, like who will score next, also fourth quarter comebacks, for instance. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at an even bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, no matter what, especially when your team is making that late-game push. And right now, new customers to FanDuel get $300 in bonus bets. That's $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com and sign up today. You can play your game with FanDuel at FanDuel.com, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Download the FanDuel app at FanDuel.com. And now it's time to tell you about PrizePicks. Now, this is great. You want to talk about fun? PrizePicks is a whole lot of fun, because what better way is it to get paid for being right? You know what I'm saying? This particular episode, by the way, is brought to you by PrizePicks. You can make decisions every day. We all do. But how about getting paid for your decisions that you make every day? Don't miss any of the excitement this sports season, whether you're following the NBA, the NFL, or maybe even both. There's no better time to jump in on the action than with PrizePicks. If you haven't tried it yet, PrizePicks is the simplest way to play and get in on the games. Just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and if you're right, you win money. That it takes less than 60 seconds to make your lineup, and you can play anywhere PrizePicks operates, including California, Texas, and Georgia. Been using PrizePicks now for quite some time on my football Sundays, also for NBA tip-offs as well. And their new Stacks feature is a real game changer. You can now pick more on Steph's points, threes, and assists in the same lineup. Do the same thing with Tyrese Maxey while you're at it. So download the PrizePicks app today and use promo code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's promo code LOCKEDONNBA for $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. A lot of people, Keith, after our show, I think it was Tuesday night maybe, we're talking about Nick Nurse and managing, coaching for his job. Yeah. I think if you're hitting the panic button on VJ Edgecombe, which you and I have discussed, we are not, and you're hitting the panic button this early in the season on Nick Nurse when he's had, I'll call it still, a fluid starting lineup similar to last year. I'm not going to go ahead and say that he's already coaching for his job. How do you view his status right now? How hot, lukewarm, ice cold is his seat right now?
I think that's a great question, because I do believe that this is a crazy year. This is a defining year for Nick Nurse. It's a defining year for Daryl Morey as well.
Okay.
Right? I do think that they got to make something happen. You just do. And especially when you have Bob Myers. Now, I know that he's in charge of the whole Harris Blitzer organization. So he's not just the president of the Sixers. He's the president of every professional team that they own. The Commanders, the Devils, etc. But when you have a guy of that magnitude, you have to say that he is looking. And I'm telling you, he was at the Washington Wizards game that they had. So you do have to impress people. But again, it's only 8 games in right now. We look at this team, you see Joel, they're still trying to figure out what they have in him. You also see that PG didn't come back. McCain came back. He only played 1 game. They're trying to Don Barlow only played 2 games. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
How,
guy in your starting
Barlow,
lineup.
yeah, he played 2 or 3 games, right? Like 2 games, and that was it. And, over a laceration, like, whoa, like, yo, what the hell, what happened? Like, what they do? Cut off half his elbow, right? So, there's a lot of stuff that has to be figured out before, we start saying the coach is coaching for his job or not. Now, again,
all right.
Overall, yes. But here's the deal. Typically, you don't know what you have into 12 to 15 games, but it's going to take longer for the Sixers because PG hasn't played yet. So we'll get a better idea later on before we can make that determination that Nick Nurse needs to win 3 games in January, 3 in a row. If not, he's like on the next plane back to Toronto.
Let me just also say again, I still hated what he had to say after the Cavs game.
Oh, yeah.
Digging yourself out of last year, like, it's impossible. It ain't happening. All right. Just start anew. That's what the season is for. A clean slate. Nobody's making up for last year anytime soon, or really any of the disappointment we've suffered as a 76ers fan base over, well, funny I say that on a day where we're going to celebrate tomorrow we celebrate 25 years. Their first Iverson jerseys are going to be dawning this season. Yeah. Saturday night against the Raptors, 7:30 tip. Good times. Nobody's making up for it, unfortunately, in one fell swoop. You mentioned Paul George a couple of times. Latest, will we see him this homestand? When do you think we see?
I don't know, because I haven't. I hope. I hope for their sake. You know what I mean? But it's kind of like, I think that's up to P. It's one of the things with PG and the Sixers. But you would think so. It's weird because remember they said Nick Nurse did say it a couple weeks. So a couple weeks, he said that a week ago, right? So you would think that it is coming up. And when he said a couple weeks, I was thinking he was saying that for PG and Jared McCain, because it's weird. Because if you think about it, PG has been practicing with the team longer than Jared McCain.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's the crazy part about it. He's been out there. Yeah, he's been practicing longer with the team than Jared. So, it's crazy. And then even one day they said, oh, yeah, Jared was a full participant, but don't look into that because we really didn't do anything. And then next thing you know, 2 days later, he's on the floor.
Fair enough. Phil W., by the way, is saying the seat is lukewarm. So I like that. I think that's a good way to talk about it if you're talking about a guy having at all threatened his job threatened. Keith Pompey will be covering it all throughout this weekend, of course, when it comes to Inquirer.com. So make sure you guys check that out, all that Keith has to offer on Inquirer.com. We appreciate you guys joining us here on Locked On 76ers, making it your first listen every day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. For your next listen, how about you guys check out Locked On Fantasy Basketball with Josh Lloyd, host the #1 fantasy basketball podcast, giving you daily tips and helping you not only win your league, but also making you the smarter NBA fan. Find Locked On Fantasy Basketball on YouTube, wherever you listen to your podcast as well. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. For Keith Pompey, I'm Marc Farzetta. Sixers tomorrow night, 7:30 against the Toronto Raptors. And then after that, another back-to-back. They got the Detroit Pistons. So Raptors playing some good basketball right now. Pistons, obviously, a fine team in the Eastern Conference. Sixers testing their might over the weekend. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Back with you guys later on. See you guys later. Bye.